about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. 1-877-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So we're coming into what? Are we day 28 of this shutdown? This is probably going to go on even longer. And I don't understand why, the Democrat, I understand the game they want to play, but I don't understand why they think they're going to be successful in terms of using Obamacare as the reason why they can't keep the government open and have air traffic controllers getting paid, our military getting paid. Now, there was a private donor, a friend of President Trump, I think Timothy Mellon, who donated $130 million to pay our military during this fiasco. But unfortunately, it's going to take a lot more money to pay all the federal civilian employees as well as the military and to try to keep the government open. Air traffic controllers are about to miss their first full paycheck. They got paid partially, now nothing, as this goes on day 28, I believe. Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy had spoken about how yesterday, I think today was the first day that air traffic controllers are not getting any money. Now, we need our air traffic controllers, and already we are seeing the ramifications of people, being incentivized to try to come to work without getting paid. They will get back pay, but it's, not easy when you're seeing that there's no end in sight. And my son and his girlfriend were traveling a couple days ago, and the delays were just, they were, for non-holiday, for it being a non-holiday time of year, you don't usually see these kinds of delays. But Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy had said, look, they're making sure that it's safe. Now, he had reassured the American public today that flying is safe. However, we are going to have to understand that our schedules are going to, it may not be able to, our travel time may not fit to our schedule. If they don't have enough air traffic controllers, then what they do is they slow down flights. Sean Duffy said the first day is hard. The second day is even harder than that. The third day, because they have gas, they have childcare costs. One air traffic controller told him, quote, my 10-year-old daughter made the traveling volleyball team, and it costs hundreds of dollars. I had to tell her I couldn't pay the money because I don't have a check coming in. I have to put food on the table. It's tragic, but here's what's even worse. He said Democrats aren't voting to open up the government. He says you are safe to fly because these controllers come in. They're the most amazing professionals. They do their job. They keep you safe. But again, I don't want them driving DoorDash. I don't want them going to the food bank. I want them focused on keeping you safe. So what's been happening are these individuals, if the money's not coming in, it's one thing to come to work and still be there for the team and for the country. But some of these other workers are driving for DoorDash or Ubering to get some money into their bank account because their landlord still wants rent. November 1st is coming up. Mortgage, they still want money. Remember the eviction moratorium, when that went on, landlords still had to, maybe the government could say, all right, tenants don't have to pay rent, but those individuals who had to then turn around and pay on the mortgage, the bank didn't give them a moratorium. And so it's a mess when money isn't coming in, and it trickles to everybody. This isn't just it's government and it's Trump's government, so who cares? This is how you see people's attitudes toward this. And I go, are you planning on flying Thanksgiving in 3 weeks? You might want to care. If you are hoping that your food stamps are going to your card is going to be full. Now, if you are concerned that the food banks are not going to have food for our homeless and for our populations that are cold and hungry, because we have to feed our air traffic controllers and our military because they don't have money coming in. This is ridiculous. So Senator Ted Cruz is proposing a bill to at least get air traffic controllers to pay or paid. The Senate may vote on that bill this week, but unfortunately, every time the Senate says, okay, while you guys are doing this and making a stand for Obamacare, which, by the way, Obamacare is the Democrats' fault, but I guess they want subsidies, and they're saying that millions of Americans are going to, they want to start renegotiating the big, beautiful bill. I think that is a bad move and sets a bad precedent. CRs are supposed to be designed to be quick and simple to keep the government funded. But it's when politicians go, well, why don't we use this opportunity as leverage? Why don't we make a stand? We don't like Trump and the government, so why don't we disable it temporarily so he loses a month of his presidency? Well, as you see, Trump's not stopping. He's, meeting Asian leaders, working on trade talks and tariffs, and he's still working. He's not going to let this stop him. He's still working. But Senate Democrats are going to have to pass the continuing resolution because it's too much of it's a different issue to start negotiating Obamacare. And trust me, nobody wants to renegotiate Obamacare, maybe even make it Trump care, than the Republicans. I mean, if we have an opportunity as this country to fix the mess that ACA caused, I think all hands on deck. But that's going to take some time. It's not going to be able to get done in time for people losing their SNAP benefits and paychecks. So 5 more Democrats need to just sign the same CR they signed before, and they didn't have a problem with a few months ago. 1-877-Daliah. Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
back on Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X, the Dr. Daliah, Facebook, the Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So the Oversight Committee has released a report on President Biden's presidency and what his cognitive decline could have done. And if his use of the auto pen or whoever used his auto pen, was that legal? Was it legit? Was it under the president's orders? And so according to the Oversight Committee, the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform released a staff report titled, okay, this is their title, The Biden Auto Pen Presidency, Decline, Delusion, and Deception in the White House. Now, according to their website, it says the report exposes how President Joe Biden's top advisors, political operatives, and personal physician concealed the president's mental and physical decline from the American people. The findings revealed that as President Biden's condition deteriorated, his aides exercised presidential authority and facilitated executive actions without his direct authorization, including misusing the auto pen and failing to properly document decision-making processes. Now, there's, the key findings, that it delineates, we're looking at, coordination to mislead, getting people to not disclose, what he was doing, the need to use big letters and pictures and choreograph his press conferences. And, why didn't the doctor order an MRI? Why didn't he? And here's the thing, even if you don't want to talk about Biden's decline, I'm pretty ticked off that one of our former presidents did not have the proper care, which I'm assuming, based on the White House story, such that prostate cancer, which usually takes time to grow and spread, was not picked up early enough to the point that we were told it's stage 4 and has metastasized. You rarely see that in somebody who's getting regular exams. They say, well, it's aggressive. Well, isn't the medical team's evaluation aggressive? I mean, they didn't want to screen it for prostate cancer because, they thought it was a personal decision. Really? And if it did spread to the brain, they would have been able to pick up on that on the MRI when we were concerned about his memory and his cognitive issues. There's such gross malpractice and negligence, unless his doctor did want to do standard of care, did want to be on top of his prostate, did want to be, even though I understand the USPSTF backed down from regular screenings, especially of Biden's age. But, if his doctor did want to do mini mental status exam, full mental status exam, cognitive assessments, MRIs, and he was told no, all right, well, then he better document that, because I am assuming the state medical board that he's licensed in, Virginia, Maryland, D.C., whatever, is going to investigate. Are they not? I haven't heard that they are. Many people say, let him go through his cancer treatment, let this lie, just move on. The problem is he pre-pardoned people. Why did he pardon Adam Schiff? What did Adam Schiff do? And the slew of pardons, even though a lot of presidents do that before they leave, was that really him? And then, did some of the things he technically auto-penned and didn't officially sign, or was it involved in the decision? Now, he's going to say he was involved in the decision, but if they have proof through emails and texts that Biden wasn't asked, that's huge. You cannot have somebody else usurp or hijack the presidency. And then, yes, that would negate those decisions and those pardons. But that's for the politicians to go back and forth on. I really don't care what happens to Adam Schiff. I don't care. But my job, in media and for you all is to clarify, why the commander-in-chief, who should have the best medical care in the world, be so publicly apparent about about his deterioration. We see him publicly deteriorate. Well, how does that happen? And then how does the president's cancer get missed? Or by the time we're told about it, it's farther along. So there's only a few possibilities. One is they knew about it. They were treating him, but they kept it from the public, which is bad. Or they played I don't know. And then if they are going to double down on this, I don't know, play dumb, we doctors now have a lot of explaining to do. We are told to not be aggressive as it pertains to prostate cancer screening. And that it should be an individualized decision between the person and their doctor. Because prostate cancer, allegedly, is so slow growing that it will outlive you. You will die of something else. Now, that is what we have been told. And this is why patients are not getting aggressive prostate cancer screening. It's because of that theory that prostate cancer is so slow. You'll see aggressive ones in African American or black males. You could see aggressive prostate cancer in younger individuals, like you saw with Gunther from Friends. Tyler, I forget Gunther's name. But may he rest in peace, because he ended up dying of prostate cancer at a young age. I think he was only 50. But the public is like, whoa, wait a second. I don't want to be like Biden, where we're told he's healthy. He's running for office, doing all that. And then a few months later, he's got stage 4 cancer. And patients are now going to their doctor going, whoa. You make sure I don't have stage 4 prostate cancer. And doctors are like, it doesn't kind of happen that way. So we need some explanation. Either they knew about it the whole time and they lied that he was sick. And then if that's the case, why on earth would you make him run for office again? Why would you have him go through that? Or the doctor was completely inept and ignored standard of care and evaluating him for things. If somebody has altered mental status or memory issues, of course we scan the brain to look for tumors, to look for atrophy, to look for signs of vascular dementia, or look for signs that could be indicative of Alzheimer's. That's standard of care. Why the hell did his Dr. O'Connor not do that? And patients are, all of this is, when I talk about things, I want to teach. One of the reasons why I went into medicine is not only to heal, but to teach. One of the reasons why I went into radio is to teach and help heal. And so this isn't a good teaching point when your commander-in-chief, which is supposed to have the best of the best health care, is publicly deteriorating and then ends up getting a very poorly prognosed cancer just out of the blue. That usually doesn't move that aggressively that quick. there needs to be explanation. And so I don't mind that this committee is moving forward with that. Because every future president needs to have, a good medical team. They're our commander-in-chief. You know how embarrassing this is? And poor Biden. He's actually the real victim here, in addition to the American people who were lied to. 1-877-Daliah.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back at the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So I don't need my job any harder than it is as it pertains to taking care of patients. But after the COVID fiasco, trust in doctors and the CDC were at an all-time low. In fact, they did a study. The Kaiser Family Foundation did a study in January of 2025 looking at, we're now 5 years past COVID, and they said trust in physicians and hospitals decreased substantially from 71.5% in April 2020 to 40.1% in January 2024. And individuals with lower levels of trust were less likely to have been vaccinated or received boosters for COVID-19. Now, this study was more based on the COVID-19 issues, but we have been hearing and seeing time and time again that the mandates, that the Dr. O'Connor's medical care of Biden, and is it a man who's deteriorating in front of us? Shouldn't he be getting cognitive tests? Shouldn't he get an MRI? How did we miss prostate cancer, aggressive prostate cancer, in the commander-in-chief? And it's not that we missed it and it was stage 1 or stage 2. We're talking stage 4, metastatic. The American public is looking at all this going, what's going on here? And so to get patient trust back, it is gonna take decades to reverse the damage. Now, why did patients lose trust in doctors? Now, it wasn't just all COVID and the Biden administration. I mean, this happened even before. Back in the late 90s and the early 2000s, when doctors were getting sued, sometimes for ridiculous things, sometimes for justifiable things, but when the lawsuits were going absolutely exponentially crazy in numbers, and doctors like, you need a test, and the patient's like, yeah, but I don't want a test, but they're like, but you or your family will sue me. I'm ordering the test. All right, if there's a barrier between a patient and a doctor, and there's an obvious source of contention or the need for somebody to protect their own interests, that already starts to wheedle down trust. That, patients would say, don't send me to that doctor because, they always want to do pelvic exams and pap smears and me do my mammograms. I don't want to do mammograms. And I'm like, well, that doctor is not going to want to be your doctor if you end up having breast cancer and your lawyer says, let's sue everybody that didn't, recommend proper standard of care. And so we were seeing doctors discharge patients We even saw this with doctors and pediatric patients where kids couldn't go and see the pediatrician if they weren't vaccinated. Because doctors are like, I can't take on the liability. I can't let another kid get sick. If that kid couldn't be vaccinated and this unvaccinated kid comes in with chickenpox. And so that was a big part of the change that started in terms of trust. Also, the HMOs and the 80s and 90s corporate sort of takeover where, people thought their doctor was their friendly neighborhood doctor, and that you got corporate politics and government out of the equation. No. Once that got more infused, they're like, is that you talking or the corporation? Is there now a bottom line? You mean I can't just, bring you in some chicken, or bring you in some cake and you take that as payment anymore? No. Now that we have malpractice insurance and workers' comp insurance, and we have to pay for billing software, and doctors had to be more business minded. Then Obamacare came around. And Obama says you're going to keep your doctor. You will not lose your doctor. And doctors were telling their patients, I'm not going anywhere. Obama says you won't lose your doctor. So I don't know what's in this bill, but I'm not going anywhere. And then what happened? Their doctor left. Their doctor couldn't keep the doors open. Deductibles were too high, so patients weren't paying. Insurance wasn't paying. And the average neighborhood doctor closed down. And they did lose their doctor. I remember telling my patients, I don't plan on going anywhere. Well, 7 years later, I had to go and teach. Like, I couldn't continue this. I probably only had another year or two left before we would run out of money to pay staff. It was that bad. And so when you don't have that long time medical provider that you have been with for decades, like my gynecologist, I love her so much. I've had a hysterectomy and I still use her as my doctor. She's amazing. I've been going to her since the late 90s. I mean, my relationship with her is so strong. I have that trust. How many of you have a medical provider that you have? And one of the reasons why I go to her is I don't have a primary care provider. It keeps changing. So if you don't have that one-on-one with somebody who knows you, and you got to start from scratch. Like, okay, well, nice to meet you. What's wrong? Well, this is the 14th time I've had colitis. When was your last colonoscopy? Well, your office sent me for, you don't know you don't remember all that. And then you got to start from scratch. You're not going to really bond with that medical provider. Then came the COVID campaigns, where rather than, and I credit Trump and Biden for getting the vaccines created and rolling them out. But the message the Biden administration should have had is, guys, these are the numbers that we're getting, and I know some people think it's COVID secondary or COVID primary, but because COVID is killing and hospitals are overwhelmed, we have a vaccine. We are urging you to get the vaccine. We're not going to fire you. You're not going to be kicked out of, school. You're not going to be, kicked out of the hospital. God bless our nurses. We're not going to fire our military, but we are recommending you do this. Instead, it was, we are going to pull federal funds if you don't mandate your employees vaccinate. Okay, well, that turned into a cluster and a seventh. And the same nurses that were heroes, that were busting their butts to save lives in early COVID pandemic, end up getting fired a year and a half later, leaving their shoes. And they did this in one of our local hospitals, leaving their shoes with the note of how many years they put into the medical field or they worked at that hospital because they chose to not get a vaccine. Come on, man, really? And that hurt. That completely, devastated a lot of people's trust. And once people thought that there was politics involved, politics should never be involved in medicine. You want protection against a pathogen? We have a vaccine. It is a new vaccine. The methods of mRNA technology has been around for a while. We trust that, but it is a new vaccine. We get you. Instead, it was a vilification. And then Trump brings up, he's looking at some of the studies on hydroxychloroquine and other things. And then all of a sudden, whatever Trump says, people say, oh, no, you got to do the opposite. And then, boom, it became a right-left thing. Why? And doctors like, come on, man. And then doctors started to split along party lines. Meanwhile, I had a lot of liberal, left-leaning doctors that did not want to get the vaccine. I had a lot of conservative doctor friends that were pro-vaccine. We're trying to explain to everybody this isn't a right-left thing. But the media and the country wanted the divide. So here we are now with RFK Jr., and we're starting to see a little bit of a shift. Because even though RFK Jr. has been criticized for his attitude on vaccines, etc., the one thing that I think bipartisanly doctors are starting to agree upon is, one, educating the public and making sure the public has access to that education so they can make an informed decision. Number two is, let's look at something we've been doing and see if we need a reevaluation of it. Now, I am no fan of taking the MMR and splitting it up into 3 shots. You know, if the MMR is as safe as it can be in that 3-shot form, you know, to add 3 more shots onto the tens and almost hundreds of shots that these kids are getting, I think that's going to be too much. However, should we have a measles vaccine, a mumps vaccine, and a rubella vaccine? Because as we're seeing measles come back, do some people need a booster? And they don't want the whole MMR. You know, looking at, what are we doing and what can we do to improve? I think it helps regain trust. And we're slowly starting to see people go, look, I want to know that this isn't a right-left thing, you know, or a big pharma thing. You know, are you putting my interests first and my safety first? And once healthcare professionals have that attitude, I think we're going to see more trust. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. I was driving home the other day, and there was a guy on his motorcycle with a skeleton sitting on his back seat. Right? And I'm looking at that as, pretty cool. I love it when people decorate their vehicles, for holidays. And I went and got some... after I saw that, I went and got some reindeer. I understand the skeletons for Halloween, but Halloween, that's over on Friday. By Saturday morning, Halloween's over. And as much as I like to celebrate Halloween, I don't like celebrate it. I just like, going out and hanging out. And I usually don't decorate my house for Halloween. I'll tell you why in a second. But I went and got reindeer ears for my car. I'm excited about this. According to Amazon, The tushy of my car is going to light up. The front of my car is going to light up, and I am going to have reindeer ears. I don't know how they don't fall off during freeway driving, especially with the way I drive. So it'll be interesting. But I really like it when people decorate. But I'm noticing, some of my listeners have noticed this too, that where their communities aren't really decorated for Halloween. I probably can count on my hand how many houses I think there's about 200 houses in our development that are decorated for Halloween, maybe 5 of them. There might be more, but when I walk the dog, I'm kind of blown away by that. And I just remember growing up, I mean, even in the teens, but before the recession, I have to admit, before the recession, it looked like everybody and their mother dressed up their house, for Halloween. And then candy got expensive. Decorations got expensive. And I started to notice after the Great Recession, so we're talking 2009 to 2015, I started to notice fewer people decorating. And Halloween really started to take a change. And so I think, when you go online to look for, I have hundreds of dollars, maybe now almost in the $1,000 mark of Christmas decorations to decorate the house. I always kind of have to buy new, at the start of the year and for lights and all that. And it just gets more and more expensive. So I try to buy them after the holidays, but the prices don't go down either because they know people are like, oh, okay, well, I'll do after Christmas shopping. And then they end up, spending money anyway. So I think the best time to buy Christmas lights is like June. But I'm noticing it is getting more expensive. So one, if people are struggling to pay the rent and to spend $100 or $200 decorating, not good. Another thing too is if your house isn't decorated, the kids don't come for candy. Candy's getting expensive. Now I want kids to get their candy, but I don't decorate for the holidays because the dogs. Once I got Uzi, she really freaks out every time the doorbell comes or somebody comes. And it was so bad, and I didn't have anything to relax her, that I had to actually take her away from the neighborhood until Halloween was over. And now we have another rescue. We have another dog. And every time, like if the doorbell rings in a movie or TV show, they just, they go crazy. And I love having dogs like that because if there ever is, a criminal in the house or somebody who breaks in, I'm going to know about it. If Corey's ever out of town, I have plenty of time to get my gun, which is usually next to me, if the dogs start going crazy and nobody should be entering the house. And so, but for Halloween, if my house is decorated, people are going to think that they could then ring the doorbell for candy. So I make it dark. And that's my excuse. It's not that candy's expensive, but I think for a lot of people it is. Candy's getting ridiculously expensive. What I used to do is put a bowl out, so everybody could grab candy and one kid just takes the whole candy. That takes the whole bowl. And so every time I would come back, we go to a neighborhood where they do like a block party. So we go to the next neighborhood and go to that block party. And I come back and the bowl of candy is completely empty. I'm like, come on, man, really? There weren't that many kids. So tonight, this Friday, I'll stand out there. I'll give candy to whoever walks by, especially with these cute little kids coming by. And then I'll go to the block party. It's a Friday night, so it's going to be really, really fun. But for those of you that have neighborhoods that are, you got kids, you got grandkids, and you're like, this kind of stinks. What's going on here? Well, I think there are different attitudes. Now, I know in a lot of religions, we're not supposed to be celebrating. I remember there was Hebrew school on Halloween night, and parents were complaining to the rabbi, going, why is there Hebrew school tonight? It's Halloween. And he's like, Halloween is not a Jewish holiday. And they're like, come on, man. And also, with Catholics, they're like, if it's about, it has its pagan roots, it's not really something that, but in America we do because, we teach our kids to extort and blackmail, trick or treat. We tell our kids to go to a completely unknown stranger's house, threaten them with trick or treat, have them give you food when you're not really supposed to be, taking food from strangers. And that's just a tradition we do in America. But you have a lot of people now kind of questioning that tradition, going, I don't know who lives here. Now, we have sex offenders nearby. I don't want my child abducted. Cars are now quiet. These Teslas are ridiculously quiet, these electric vehicles. And car accidents and pedestrian deaths are high on Halloween night. Like, and you're starting to have a lot of people have a different attitude towards that. What I'm seeing, which I think is a great idea, rather than not celebrating, because Halloween is so much fun. And I got to tell you, it was one of my favorite things to do with the kids. In fact, when my boys were too old to trick or treat, I made them with their teenage friends, go around, because I still wanted the free candy. But I remember I was so depressed that they were. I just loved going trick or treating with the boys. It was so much fun. And one of them still likes to dress up and walk around and hang out. But the other one's like, come on, Mom. I'm in my 20s. I go, exactly. I could trick or treat at any age. Don't trick or drink, but that's always fun. But don't do that. Can't say that. So what I do notice some families do, which I think is a great idea, is get your neighbors together and say, what we're going to do is we're going to get those little street signs and we're going to corner off the neighborhood and do a block party. We will have tables outside. This way the dogs don't get, all, freaked out about the doorbells. And we'll have tables outside where they could trick or treat and come to the tables. We'll have hot dogs, hamburgers. In fact, I think the news was covering that there was somebody offering hot dogs. I noticed that. I've been noticing that the last 10, 15 years, where there are some homes where they have their wine, for the adults, for the parents. They have food. One of my dentist friends passes out toothbrushes and toothpaste. Not the most exciting for the kids, but parents love that. And so where they actually make it more of a block party. You have music. You have the kids hanging out. They kind of trick or treat. Or you have the homes on that street, the homes they could go up to trick or treat at. And then you make it more of a block party. And I think that is a great way to keep it safe, keep traffic away. You could warn traffic ahead of time with some signs. You could ensure that these kids are not going to get bad candy. In the 80s, that really freaked a lot of parents out. I was a kid at the time, but I would have to show my mom candy because she had to look for razor blades. And I remember one Halloween, she's like, you're just not eating any of this. I just don't have the time to make sure nobody injected it with something And I was like, but we went to that house. She's like, what did that house give you? I don't know. And so, for those of you that are kind of a little apprehensive or you think your neighborhood is not going to do jack diddly squat, there's other options. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.